integrated holistic strategy. IBM has 65,000 consultants with Gen AI expertise who can help you design, integrate, and optimize AI solutions. So you're not just deploying AI, you're scaling it across your business. Learn more at ibm.com/consulting. IBM. Let's create a new spokesperson. When it's time to shine, make the most of it. It's always been that way, especially when it comes to managing weight and health. Obesity can increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, including heart attack and even stroke. Talk to a healthcare provider about your weight. Your heart may depend on it. Go to
Looks a
truthaboutweight.com.
little blurry.
This podcast is sponsored by PayPal. Let's take a moment to chat about Black Friday. Or should I say Stack Friday? When you use the PayPal app, you can stack deals on top of deals.
Thank
In the
you.
PayPal app, you've got access to tons of savable cashback offers you
Why are
can
they
stack
flashing
with
me?
Black Friday deals from your favorite brands. Just check out with PayPal when you shop online. Turn
Car
Black
behind me is
Friday
flashing
into
me. Thank
Stack
you.
Friday with PayPal.
Thank you,
Don't just pay.
Talon.
PayPal.
Did I
Check
say your
offers in
name
the app
right?
for details. Cashback
Talon.
earned as points redeemable for cash and other options.
Thanks for
Terms and
subscribing
conditions
to
apply.
my videos.
Dry eyes still feel
Thanks for
witty,
watching
rough,
them.
or tired?
Thanks for
With
being a
Mibo,
part of it.
eyes can feel.
But the car behind me keeps flashing me. That's annoying.
It's the only prescription dry eye
Glad you like my videos. I hope you can hear me. My mic's broken right where it. Sunday. Friday night. Bird.
Expressed by the host are their thoughts and opinions only and do not reflect those of iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio, Coast to Coast AM, employees of the networks, or their sponsors and associates. We would like to encourage you to do your own research and discover the subject matter for yourself.
This is one of those shows that is forced me to challenge myself because this is an elaborate topic. It's one of the most fascinating topics in the entire world. But in order for me to get into it, I am going to have to use some technical wording, we'll call it. I don't want to go so far as jargon, but some technical wording in order to talk about the nuts and bolts of the experiment that I've been doing. And some of you are more comfortable with that kind of terminology than others, but bear with me. I'll do my best to keep this as simple as possible. Let me just start by saying that one of my earlier shows, episode 34, was called The Last Werewolf and Time Travel Cameras. And if you haven't listened to that, please go back, find episode 34 of this show. You will not be disappointed. So I'm not going to go too deep into that particular edition of the show, but one thing I talked about was the so-called chronovisor. And just to give you a quick recap, apparently, and as a matter of fact, there is a site here called Lincolnian.com that gives a nice overview. Sometime in the early 1960s, supposedly a group of respected Italian physicists, engineers, and mathematicians led by this Benedictine friar created this device called a chronovisor working at the Vatican. And the friar, whose name was Ernetti, claimed the machine could look into the past and bring back recordings of historic events, just like a television. And it had very similar components to a television. But apparently, according to them, and this was written about in a book, which is how we know the whole story, a book that is in French. I have a copy of it somewhere, even though I don't read French. But these images were supposedly captured from the past and could appear in the form of holographs. So you could even rotate them to view these images from different perspectives. So we're talking about things like going back and witnessing the birth or the crucifixion of Christ. And according to this book and the legends surrounding this chronovisor project, it was deemed so powerful, so dangerous in a sense, because of its ability to actually rewrite history, that it was either destroyed, and the plans will probably never be revived, or it was locked away in the most secret possible spot at the Vatican, where it remains to this day and is still sometimes used by them. I don't think we'll ever know whether or not to believe that story. However, and this is just one thing that is pretty amazing. There was an Italian magazine at one point that wrote an article about that story, and they published a picture that they claimed was a picture of the face of Jesus Christ that was captured using the chronovisor. And if you want to see that picture, I currently have it posted on my website. If you go to joshuapwarren.com and click the link to the Curiosity Shop, scroll down and you will see a variety of interesting images. One of them says chronovisor pic, and there you will see what they claim is a picture of the real face of Jesus captured using the chronovisor. So now I have heard that story for many years, and that seemed like something that would be great for some kind of a science fiction movie, but it gave me no way of putting my hands onto some tools to try to figure out how to create such a thing. But there is this other project that I had heard about for decades, which is totally separate but very similar and more in my wheelhouse. And that is the idea of a radionics time camera. Now, you should know this if you listen to this show, but by radionics, some people call it psionics. We're talking about using symbols and symbolic language to create thought forms that you put often through like a wishing machine to create some tangible outcome. So it's a simple way of hacking reality. If you want to watch videos about this, the place to go is Wishing Machine wishingmachineproject.com. Well, I have heard for decades about these scientists who developed what is known as the radionics time. I'm going to give you more details in a
Why
minute.
are you thinking
But this would be
it's
considered, just like Chronovisor, the holy grail, perhaps, of radionics and psionics experiments. We're talking about creating a type of camera that you load unexposed film in, and by setting radionically a location and a time, then it's able to an image of what was happening at that location at that time. So it could almost be used like a real crystal ball.
over with your right.
Again, look at the power of seeing the past as it actually happened. Possibly viewing historical secrets related to things like buried treasure, or even looking into the future to see who's going to win at the Super Bowl before you go to the sports book in Vegas and place your bet. Now, the question would become, well, how do these things actually work if they do work? We know that wishing machines and radionics boxes are mind-powered. And so, could these simply be mental imprint that the operator is the one actually traveling through time mentally and using a machine in order to capture an image of what was found there, almost like a remote viewer? Well, that may be, because the mind is a time machine. I've talked about this before, how that when you have a memory, what you're doing is mentally traveling through time to the past. And then if you start imagining how you're going, what you're going to have for lunch tomorrow, well, you're time traveling into the future and possible future avenues. So that said, let me get very specific with you and tell you that there was this publication that would come out sometimes in the early 1990s. I have one in my hands right now, and it's a catalog that was published by a company in Hancock, Wisconsin, here in the United States, called Lord Industries, and it's spelled LOR''D, Lord Industries Limited. New Age Alternatives. I don't really know anything about who they were, but they had these just amazing catalogs that also incorporated a lot of articles about these extremely bizarre topics related to the esoteric and metaphysical and psychic. So here is one article that appeared often in this catalog. It has a picture of a radionics box, which used to be called by most people, they used to call it a black box. And here's what it says. A mysterious-looking device occupied the center of a big research lab just outside of Oxford, England. George Deloire, head of the huge laboratory complex, and several technicians were busily making last-minute adjustments to some of the dials that covered the apparatus. With a final nod of approval, Dr. Deloire inserted a piece of ordinary photographic film into an opening in the device, and after a few moments, removed a picture of his wife and himself on their wedding day 30 years before. Now that's the opening to this piece, and probably one of the first times that I heard about this concept. And since then, over the years, occasionally I have had people contact me, people who are true students of radionics and psionics and wishing machines, and say, I've heard this story about this time machine, this, radionics time camera that would allow you to take pictures of things that happened in the past, if not the future. What's the deal there? Well, I have been looking into it more and more over the years. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the real story here of who these people were who were creating these supposed time cameras. And then, this is something I've been putting off for a long time because I just knew I wanted to do it. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it right. I finally I figured out a plan for how to put together a possible radionics time camera. And I've been doing some experiments, and so far I have had some very interesting results. I'm going to explain to you step by step what I've been doing and teach you how you can start experimenting with this yourself. All right, yeah, it's one of those shows And if you like this kind of show, hey, it's free content. So if you want me to keep doing it, you got to support the show. And that's why you go to joshuapwarren.com and you visit our curiosity shop. Hey, buy something cool for yourself or a loved one. Something you won't find anywhere else in the world, because that's the kind of unique goods that you'll find there. And also, when you're on the website, go to the homepage. Take 2 seconds. Sign up for my free and spam-free e-newsletter. You just put your email address in there, hit submit, and instantaneously you will receive an automated email from me with links to all kinds of free goodies, like the free online good luck charm, some money magic tips, experiments that you can do, like instructions on how to build aura glasses for next to nothing in your kitchen that will allow you to start seeing into the spiritual realm. All that and more is at joshuapwarren.com. I am Joshua P. Warren, and you are listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast and Paranormal Podcast Network. And I will be right back.
How do you stay ahead when you're building AI applications? Start with a head start. IBM's high-performance graphic models are optimized for enterprise tasks, like domain-specific processes and workflows. They're designed so you can do less training and more creative. Ready to hit the ground running? Get started now at ibm.com/IBM. It's great.
Hi, I'm Cindy Hopper. My scalp was covered with psoriasis. Felt like I was trapped between a rock and a hard place. Then I started Cosentyx.
Cosentyx efficacious is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe black psoriasis to be at dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx before starting to check for TB, serious allergic reactions, severe skin reactions that look like eczema, and increased risk of infections. Some fail and occur. Cosentyx may lower ability to fight infections, so tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Anaphylactic or plan to, or vitamin symptoms develop or worsen. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX.
Cosentyx works for me.
Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
This podcast is sponsored by PayPal. I know you're scrolling through your phone right now while listening to this podcast, hunting for those sweet Black Friday deals, huh? Well, you're in luck. With the PayPal debit card, you can earn 5% cash back on up to $1,000 spent in your monthly category. Whether it's clothing, health and beauty, or just for this holiday season, tech. Let's say you find a site-wide sale in your favorite demo brand. If apparel is your monthly category, and to check out with your PayPal debit card, you'll be stitching together those savings like a pro. Turn Black Friday into Stack Friday with 5% cash back in your monthly category with the PayPal debit card. So just pay. PayPal. PayPal.com/reward.
This is Jonathan Strickland with Protect Cell Podcast. Unlock your potential with the unlimited power, battery life, and AI capabilities of next-gen PCs powered by Snapdragon X Elite processors. Found in today's Intel Plus PCs, Snapdragon X Elite brings 4 masterpieces to life in seconds with instant AI-powered image editing tools, or it enables you to 3D design entire power concepts with powerful productivity tools. Lightning fast performance, these long battery life, and best-in-class AI. There's no limit to what you can accomplish with Snapdragon X Elite. Learn more at snapdragon.com/products. Snapdragon branded products are products of Qualcomm Technologies Incorporated and/or subsidiaries. Battery life varies significantly with settings, usage, and disclosures. Sponsored by Local Brokers. Hi, I'm Sam MC. You can't see it, but it can be true. Having MASH, often associated with MASH or metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis, is a potential life-threatening liver disease and a problem with conditions like obesity, type 2 diabetes, or high triglycerides. There are no ingredients and don't know your risk of MASH without talking to a doctor. Learn more and speak with them.
Wormhole Brain. From my studio in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, where every day is golden and every night is silver. Taco Zue. And here's something that I must tell you before I forget, because this is StrangeThingsShow.com. StrangeThingsShow.com. Then you will find, of course, links to different platforms where you can listen to this show. Right at the top is iHeart. And of course, you also can just go directly to iHeart. You don't have to go through StrangeThingsShow.com. But regardless, go to iHeart, search for Coast to Coast AM or my name, and you should find it. And now, when you bring up the show, below the description of the show, there is a new little icon that says transcript. And you can click that button and boom, there is a written transcript of every word in the show. And going all the way back to episode 1 in October of 2020. Now, I don't know just how accurately the transcript is, because I haven't had it. But this is amazing, because I have had people contact me over the years saying, hey, do you have a transcript of the show, especially if you have someone who has hearing problems? And I said, no, that I don't. Some people have made their own transcripts of the show, but now, apparently, if you go there, and I don't know if this is going to be permanent, or, I mean, you can copy this right now and paste it into a document, save it, send it to yourself in an email. It's amazing. So now I'm like, oh boy, and I hope I didn't say something that I wouldn't want to see in writing. But, you know, I started out my career as a writer, and even though I don't write as many books anymore, you know, I've published over 20 books, I still have felt like that podcasting for me is a form of writing. When I'm sitting here and talking to you, it's like I'm just writing off the top of my head. I'm sure I've got prep that I've done just like I would for a book, whether it's personal research or whatever. But see, this is what's happened to our technology. All forms of media are merging together into this indistinguishable thing called information, and you can access the same information. Access iHeart, download the iHeart app, whatever it is. That's where you can find the transcripts of the show. So that was a nice surprise. Also, before I continue talking about the time camera, you know, if any of you listening out there happen to know anything about who this company or what this company, Lord Industries, was back at, let's see, it was box 156, which they say was Highway G and Aspen Avenue in Hancock, Pennsylvania. Hancock, Wisconsin. Zip code 54943. Let me know if you know anything about what this company really was and what ended up happening to the company, because they did publish a lot of really great stuff. All right, back to the story at hand. So now, when it comes to the question of who was this man, Delaware, and by the way, that name is spelled okay, it's 3 words, Delawar, just like the beginning of my last name. George Delaware. He apparently was also working on projects with his wife, Marjorie Delaware. But he was not the only person working on this concept of creating a radionic camera. If you go to Radionics Spectracom, which is a website, they talk some about how that really the first person who started making big waves was a woman in the USA, Dr. Ruth Drown. And then George and Marjorie Delaware in England both invented a version of a radionic camera. They think that Dr. Ruth Drown was the very first one to do it. It says she discovered this amazing technique by connecting an unexposed photographic plate to a radionic instrument using a wire. And when the photographic plate was developed, the organ that the radionic instrument was tuned to would appear on the film without the use of any sort of light while the photo was being taken. So she was looking at this as a form of almost like X-ray looking inside the human body. says that she was conducting all of these experiments. She would connect a patient directly to the radionic instrument, put the rate for a specific organ on the tuning dials, and when she did this outside of the organ would be photographed. She could even use a blood spot from the patient as a witness and do the same thing. She used this camera for diagnosing medical conditions. Many times her photographs showed the same condition in a patient as was later found by conventional medical x-rays. She even received a patent for her drowned camera in Britain in 1939. But the thing is, it says the drowned camera was not purely a mechanical piece of equipment like a traditional camera. It required the use of some sort of psychic ability on Dr. Drown's part to make the camera work. Not surprisingly, she was persecuted by the FDA starting in 1951, and they threw her in prison. So Dr. Drown was never able again to take photographs with the drowned camera after her release, and within a few months she died. Now, was she just a quack like some of the others have been accused of being, like Dr. Abrams or Wilhelm Reich? I don't know, but let's see what this says about George Deloire, the guy I mentioned to begin with. On the other side of the Atlantic, George and Marjorie Deloire were doing similar things. In 1958, George Deloire received a patent for a camera that operated similar to the one Dr. Drown invented, but looked totally different. Also, like the Drown camera, it could not work without the intent of the operator or someone in close proximity with psychic abilities. Deloire called it the Mark I camera, and he took thousands of pictures with this camera. Says they were able to photograph the growing fetus in a pregnant woman with only a spot of the pregnant woman's blood. On one occasion, they photographed the contents of the stomach of a sick cow using only a drop of the cow's blood, etc., etc. And then, of course, he started doing these exceptional photos where he would take pictures of past events. And it says here, in 1959, he was able to take the photograph of his wedding day in 1929, using a spot of blood of himself and his wife, along with the intent, my wedding day, and it showed two dark human-like shapes. So now, here's the thing. I don't know exactly what happened to George Deloire, and I have not seen this picture. I've searched and I have not seen the picture that shows his supposed wedding from 30 years before. I'm looking right now at a picture of the supposed fetus, and yes, it does have the shape of a fetus, but it's not that clear. So I don't know whether or not we should believe all of these stories about these types of people. But I sure wanted to experiment with this concept for myself, because it seems like that anytime somebody starts making some progress with radionics, that eventually they get shut down.
Crazy.
So I started thinking about the best way
So are we.
So I started thinking about the best way that I might be able to do this in this day and age. Now, I'll preface by saying that I started experimenting with photography when I was a teenager, to the point where I eventually bought what's called a medium format camera, similar to a Hasselblad. Some of you will know what I'm talking about, which took some serious photographic skills to get the right exposure and the right f-stops. I had a light meter, and again, I don't want to get too technical here, but before I was 20 years old, I was already shooting and editing 16 millimeter film, motion picture film. But at one point when I was in my early 20s, I obtained what was a type of Kirlian camera, which allows you to get an image of the electrical charge that comes from someone's hand. So basically, you would take somebody's finger, say, and put it on top of an undeveloped photographic plate, and then you would pass a current through that person's body, and then develop the image, and you would have like this blue or reddish corona of light around the person's finger, and this was a way that you might be possibly capturing a photographic image of the person's energy field or astral body or etheric body. That was the idea. But because I was exposed to that, it made me think just recently about how I might be able to adapt a similar method to this radionic time camera. And the world has moved on, by and large, so far past using film exposure and film developing, that I realized that nowadays the easiest way to do such a thing would be to take advantage of an old-fashioned Polaroid camera. And depending on how old you are, I'm sure that if you're in your 40s, I guarantee you have a Polaroid camera at some point or at least not around. But if you are younger than that, you don't know exactly what a Polaroid camera is. Well, I have one in my hands that I just bought for this experiment. And this is one of the old Polaroid one-step cameras that takes the 600 film. I adapted this Polaroid camera into my radionics time camera experiment, and I'm going to tell you what I got when we come back. I'm Joshua Kenward. You're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I will be back after these important messages.
Think scaling AI is wrong? Think of it. With Watson X, you can deploy AI across any environment. Above the clouds, helping pilots navigate flights, and on lots of clouds, helping employees automate tasks. On-prem, so designers can access proprietary data on the edge, so no edge toes to the systems to use. Watson X works anywhere, so you can scale AI everywhere. Learn more at IBM.com/WatsonX. IBM. It's cool.
Hi, I'm Cindy Lauper. My scalp was covered with psoriasis. Felt like I was trapped between a rock and a hard place. Then I started Cosentyx.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, 300 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for TB. Serious allergic reactions, severe skin reactions that look like eczema, and an increased risk of infections, some fatal, have occurred. Cosentyx may lower ability to fight infections, so tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Add a vaccine or plan to, or if IBD symptoms develop or worsen. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX.
Cosentyx works for me.
Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
Like maybe 5-10 minutes ago. Yep, see? Made it. There's their little tree. into that.
You'll be stitching together those social Turn Black Friday into Stack Friday with 5% cash back when
You know what that means.
Don't just pay. PayPal. Terms and limitations.
No Cyrus today. That's funny. He could have said hello. Listening to my coast to coast, yeah. Still tired. Ow. I can't show you, I'm on my phone, fool. I don't know if I can share my screen. Strange.
On the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua P. Warren, and this is the show where the unusual becomes usual. Now, don't worry if what I'm about to describe to you doesn't make perfect sense, because I shot a video of myself going through this technique, and I'm going to tell you how you can go and watch this video as well, which makes things much, much clearer. That video is almost 14 minutes long. So basically, if you were going to try to reproduce something similar to what I've described, then probably the most obvious technique would be to go into a dark room. And I mean a dark room, no windows, no light, and bring your wishing machine in there, your radionics machine. It's got your input plate, your output plate, and your tuning knobs. And then you would represent what you were wanting to photograph on your input plate. Tune the machine, and then take a piece of unexposed film and either lay that onto the output plate for minutes or hours, or connect a wire from the output plate to the
I will when I get off the
film
live.
and let it sit there for a while. And then when you're done, you would take that piece of film, and then you would need to go through the developing process, which could be kind of elaborate because you need a variety of chemicals and containers, and you're working in the dark, and you need to know what you're doing. You need to have some space. You don't want to knock anything over and spill it. You don't want to wait too long. There's a lot to be done. So I felt the simpler solution was to use an old-fashioned Polaroid camera. The kind that I had, 30 years ago, and I actually found one on eBay that was in an estate, a collector's estate, and it's in absolutely perfect condition. It looks like it was never used. And the cool thing about a Polaroid camera is, basically what happens is, when you buy the camera, it has a flash and all that, but it does not have a battery.
Yeah,
You go out and you buy these film packs. And they're sealed up, and I have right in front of me, I've been using Color 600 film. So each pack has 8 unexposed pieces of film in it. You take your film pack out, and there is a little black piece of cardboard on top of it. You open the camera, you slide the film pack into the camera, and and then you open the top section of the camera, and it spits out that piece of cardboard. And now when you take a picture, I can't remember if I have any film left in this one or not, but if so, listen. Nope, okay. It makes that famous sound, that sound, but I guess this cartridge is, or this film pack is empty. Let's see. There we go. Did you hear it that time? That famous sound. And what's so great about it is the film pack, it's got a battery in it that operates the flash, that operates the mechanics of the camera. And all the developing chemicals are already sealed inside of the picture. So when you take a photograph, what happens is it just spits the picture out between a couple of rollers, and those rollers squeeze the chemicals that are inside of this picture, and it develops everything. And so you don't have to actually deal with the chemicals. The chemicals are all stored inside the piece of Polaroid film. Hopefully that makes sense. And so what this means is that you can go into a dark room with your Polaroid camera. You can take your pack of Polaroid film. You can open your pack of Polaroid film in the dark room. And then you can take that piece of black cardboard off the top. You can expose this piece of unexposed Polaroid film to whatever you want by using a flash bulb or a flash pack. And then after you've exposed it, you stick it into the camera, and then the camera will spit it out, and it'll develop within 10 or 15 minutes. And that's something that's kind of interesting. This shows you how our perception of time has changed, because I've asked a couple people, like, you remember developing Polaroid camera film back in the day? How long do you think that took? And they would say, oh, about 3 minutes. Nope, it takes 10 to 15 minutes for a Polaroid picture to develop. And you see now, we're so patient that we've lost, that track of time, and that seems like forever to wait 10 or 15 minutes. So what I did, for example, is I went into I have a closet at my house that's big and it has no light whatsoever. It's just like a dark room. And I took the camera in there, I took the Polaroid film, and the first thing I did was just open the pack. I took the unexposed film pack, and I put an amethyst necklace on it that I own. Nice purple amethyst with a chain. I hit it with a film flash, because I bought a little film flash thing from Amazon. It wasn't much, $20-30. Exposed it for about, well, it's, maybe 1,000th of a second. And you want to hold it up a few feet away. And then I popped the film into the Polaroid camera. It spit it out, and here I got, in 15 minutes, a nice, beautiful portrayal of my amethyst necklace. And so I say, okay, well, this obviously is working. This is how I can expose a piece of film without having to get my hands all dirty with chemicals. So then I took a coin. I chose a Canadian coin because it had some nice angles on it, even though I'm an American. And I did the same thing. I took out a piece of unexposed film in the dark room, I'm just feeling my way through this. And by the way, they make these things called loading bags that you can also use if you don't have a completely dark space, where you put everything inside. It's a light sealed, a light-proof sealed bag, and you can work inside that. You still can't see what you're doing, but anyway, so I took this Canadian coin, I put it on there, on the piece of unexposed film, hit it with the flash bulb, and then I put the piece of unexposed film into the camera, and here it goes. It spits out a nice picture of the silhouette of the Canadian coin. So I have illustrated that this method is a good method for developing, for taking an unexposed piece of film and hitting it manually in a very hands-on, direct way, and developing it without all the chemical mess. So now I go, okay, now I'm ready to move on to more radionics type stuff. So this time, I said I'm not going to use my flash. Instead, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to take that Canadian coin
Tired. Not
and I'm going to
serious.
put it on the input plate of a wishing machine. I'm going to tune that machine, and then I'm going to take an unexposed piece of film and put it on the output plate of the machine and just let it sit there for, I think maybe about a half an hour. Now there is a little red light on this particular machine I was using, so I put a piece of black tape over it to cover that up. But this film is so sensitive, there was still a little bit of the red light that got through. Regardless, I never exposed the actual coin to any type of light, and there's no reason there should have been an image of that coin
What are you
that could
doing?
somehow pass through this wishing machine onto the output plate. And yet, when I developed it, holy cow, there is an image on the developed photo that looks very much like the shape of the coin. So much so that, as you can see in the video, if I actually put the coin on top of the piece of film, it matches up perfectly. Let me go ahead and tell you where to watch this video, by the way. If you go to joshuapwarren.com, and then you scroll down, same as I told you to do for the chronovisor pick, you'll see at some point, actually right now it's below the chronovisor pick, it says, click here for the time camera experiment. Click here for the time camera experiment. If you click that link, it will take you to this 14-minute video, and you will see me going through this entire process and showing you exactly how to do this. So now at this point, I'm feeling pretty inspired, like, okay, I know that this is an authentic way of developing a picture directly on the film using traditional methods of photography. And now it looks like I may be making some headway with getting something to develop that is going through the machine radionically without a traditional light exposure. So now it's time to move on to the more serious experiment here. I thought about, as an homage to George Deloire, trying to see if I could get a photograph from my wedding, which was, let's see, how long ago was that? 28 years ago? Or no, it was Laura and I have been together for 28 years, but I think I got married like 18 years ago. So anyway, regardless, I thought to myself, well, you know what? Why don't I try to do something that's even more exotic? Something that I wasn't there for. Something that there's less of a chance that I can influence mentally. What's a historic incident that happened that everybody would know about, that was documented very well, the place, the time, and I thought, how about, well, I grew up in North Carolina, how about when the Wright brothers had their first airplane flight? Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. It took place at 10:35 a.m. on December 17th of 1903 there in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. There's the Wright Brothers National Memorial in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, showing you exactly where it happened. So I go, I'm going to plug that information into the machine and see if I can get a picture of something that happened long before I was born, the Wright Brothers' first flight. I'll tell you what I got when we come back, and I've got something else cool to share with you. I'm Joshua P. Warren. You're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network, and I will be right back.
Your business deploys AI pilots everywhere. But are they going anywhere? Or are they stuck in silos,
Or are they going
exhausting
anywhere?
resources?
Same. I will share it with you, Mom.